Hello, welcome. Happy Friday.
Hey, Glenda. Hi, Glenda. Happy Friday.
Just giving everyone a little chance to join. Happy Bank Holiday Friday. More like all weekend off.
Last one. Yeah, till Christmas. Yeah.
That's right.
There's always pressure on that weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like the first thing you forget about.
Okay, I'll give everyone a couple of minutes. I'll just start with a little intro. If you've never done a Zoom webinar before, there are some controls at the bottom of the screen. You should have a little Q&A box. So as we're going through our chat today, if you think of anything that you would like to ask Resh or Heena, you can pop it in there for us. And you should have a little chat box as well. So if you'd like to, you can pop your name and just where you're dialing in from today into the chat box. We can say hello. And I guess I will make a start. So thank you for joining us and happy Friday. My name's Glenda and I run Bloom Marketing. I'm a freelance marketing consultant and have been for 8 months now. That's gone really fast. Thanks, Kat. Hello from South Wales. Hello.
Hi, Kat.
And yeah, I think the whole purpose of these webinars was that when I first started freelancing or was thinking of going freelance for the first time, there was just lots of mixed communities that I was finding online, either freelancers who were complaining about not getting paid, or the opposite end of the scale where there was like business owners chatting about how much money they made last night and giving you tips on thing. And I just found both ends of the scale just a bit not very me, and I couldn't really find anyone that I resonated with that I could kind of look up to or get some good advice from. And I was just really lucky, excuse me, that when I started freelancing, I met some amazing women who were doing things for themselves, running their own businesses and just doing it their own way, no rule book. And I just thought that I loved their stories so much that I wanted to share them with other people. And here we are. This is the platform that shares the other stories. So today we have the lovely Resh and Heena, who run Chapati Club. And I will just hand over to them to say hi and intro themselves. Ladies.
Okay, go on here. Hi, I'm Heena. I'm Resh. We're Chapati Club. We, long story short, opened a restaurant in 2017. Locally based sort of community restaurant, worked mainly on North Indian, Kenyan food. And yeah, I'm sure you'll hear the rest of the story throughout today's episode.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. So tell us about Chapati Club, where it started, where the idea came from. I think you've got some nice childhood stories as well that you can share with us, where it really all began.
Yeah, there we go. So it's one of those pie in the sky ideas that Resh and I have always talked about, and it just started off with like kind of the odd comment, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have our own restaurant, you know? So ever since we like started dating, Resh was I mean, we're both food obsessed. I would say Resh way more so. So it was just one of those things. We used to mention it every now and again, and we used to go to Acton a lot. I knew the area really well. It's kind of like all these kind of small conversations and the odd experiences that just kind of led us to one day Resh being at work. So what? There's a backstory as well. We were trying to have a baby, weren't we? So there was this long journey of quite a few years where, you know, we were going through the process. It wasn't happening, and there was this kind of fed up moment where we kind of you know, parked the idea, because it wasn't happening. And then we moved on to the next obsession we had, which was a restaurant. And I remember Resh being at work one day. It happened as quick as I'm explaining it, where she found a unit. We loved the area. She sent me a link. I might have said, "Are you bonkers?" And next thing you knew, we went to see it. Just literally bought the lease, and then we made that commitment. Obviously at the moment of madness, and then just committed to that, really. So we got the lease in like December 2016, and then opened in April 2017. And that journey was very much, you know, we're both working full time. You know, it was the strangest side hustle you might have ever. But it worked, and
work ended up being the side hustle, I think.
Yeah, work ended up being the side hustle at that point. So that's how it started. I could continue to go on, but that's how it started.
I think you're right. There's loads of people that have these what you call like pie in the sky ideas, and I'd love to run a cafe, or I'd love to do a restaurant.
Yeah.
For me, it's when we go on holiday and I'm like, I'd love to live in Spain, actually. Yeah, should we live in Spain? And I'm sure everyone does that on holiday, but we'll probably never actually do it. But you actually did it, and I think that's so cool.
Something will happen if you start saying it to yourself. Yeah.
Manifested it.
Well, I remember there being a blackboard in our kitchen, and I don't know, like one day I was just doodling, and I did one of those pub boards. And I think I just made a pub board on our blackboard, and it was like Resh's curry, and that stayed there. So I remember, and it stayed there forever. And it must have been up for about like a year, 2 years or something.
A while, yeah.
And my niece, that was it, my niece. I keep thinking it's my niece. She came over and she was playing around with the blackboard, wasn't she? And she rubbed it all out, so it stayed there for years. It's this amazing pub design. I did it, and you know, I loved it, and it was the longest piece of chalk artwork we've ever had. And I remember she changed it, and she changed it to a design of spring. She just did a bumblebee, and I don't know. And it's funny because we ended up opening in spring as well. So I always think there's something in it, you know. It was just I don't know. It was spring is here, she wrote, and it's just like little signs. They get you there. Positive thinking.
Oh, it's meant to be. It's so cool. And you were sharing some childhood stories with me recently, that you think have all led up to kind of this moment. Can you tell us one or two of those? I think they're really fun.
Yeah, I think, you know, what Heena was saying about my food obsession, it probably started quite young, but I don't think I knew I had a food obsession, if that makes sense. It was just like there, my subconscious. And my parents always had shops, post offices, and we always lived like on top of the shop or the back of the shop. That's sort of got my upbringing. So we're always popping in and out of the shop, and my mum would like pop out for 5 minutes, make lunch, whatever. And there was this one time my granddad was over, and my mum had to go back into the shop, post office, and she said to me, she'd cut up some potatoes to make some chips. And I must have been about, I don't think I was any older than 8. So I remember my brother and sister still being quite young, and there's 3 or 4 age gap between us. And she said, oh, when your granddad's ready, can you just fry some chips for him? So I was like, yeah, cool. Bearing in mind, in those days, there was no oven chips or deep fat fryer, like something, there was nothing safe, put it that way. There's no air fryers in those days. So I put the gas on, heated the oil up, put the potatoes in to fry, and they were frying away. And I said to my granddad, look, your chips will be ready soon. And he's like, oh, I don't want to eat just yet. I want to eat a bit later. And I thought, right, okay. But I've just fried the chips that my mum had left aside. And in my head, you know, I thought, how can I make sure that he can still have these later, but they're warm? There's no microwave or, so I just turned, chips were fried, and I turned the gas off and left them in the oil. And in my head, that was the way to keep them warm enough for him to have later. Obviously, epic fail. So yeah, so it was a very quick lesson learned in terms of like cooking. But the madness is like, you know, I would never let our 8-year-old fry chips. Like,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
they're no, you know, kitchen's kind of out of bounds for the foreseeable for them. So yeah, it's just crazy that the confidence was there from my mum to think, oh yeah, she'll do that, you know.
Yeah, that must
But
have
it's
been
that you give that kid that confidence, and it just stays, doesn't it? If you keep saying, oh, don't touch that, or don't do that, or don't touch that knife, you know, or, you know, like my dad, he pushed me into the pool when I was about 5 years old, and I've never swam again. So, you know,
That's how people learned to swim in the old days.
yeah,
I was fishing, thrown
trying to import.
to the backpack.
So tell us about some challenges that you faced, maybe when you opened the restaurant, or as the sort of business was growing after opening. Any particular challenges that you can remember from the early days?
You know, for me, the biggest challenge was I was still working, and then trying to open a restaurant, and opening a restaurant, but I'd never even worked in another person's restaurant before. You know, I've never even worked in McDonald's. You know, all my jobs, but either I worked for my parents, or I'd worked in the corporate world. So I'd never taken a plate of food to someone's table before. So that was like issue number one. And we were trying to open the restaurant in such an agile way where we just wanted to fail as quickly as possible. So if something wasn't working right, let's just move on and go to the next thing, rather than investing loads of time and money in a EPOS system or training staff up. And, you know, even the chef we brought on board right at the beginning, he came on as a consultant effectively, just to set up the kitchen for us, set up our, you know, take our home cooked food, turn them into, you know, proper recipes that you could scale, so that then effectively anyone could walk in that kitchen and replicate, you know, that dish. And you know, I think the challenge for us was, I think in our heads we always knew it was going to do really, really well. But what happened is it did do really, really well and really quickly, you know. And I think it's the speed that was against us almost, you know. It's that, it was that force that we just probably, and there was no, you know, official marketing plan or business plan, or we were like, let's just do this, you know, in the way. And I think the confidence, he and I were talking about this the other day, I think my confidence came from the fact that I've grown up watching my parents run a business.
Yeah.
So getting a shop unit and going in and re-kitting the place out, whether it be a shop or a restaurant or barbers, in my head I knew how to do that. But it was, I guess, the nuance of having to deal with chefs, you know, front of house, food ordering, waste, you know. And we were trying to, you know, like I say, like be so agile in the way we operated as a business.
We had our so I remember so yeah, we did everything in the leanest way possible. We literally called in all of our friends that we knew, and all those pub conversations where you think you're wasting your life, they're not wasted, right? They're not wasted, because all of them paid off. There was
we didn't know you, Glenda, then.
Yeah. We didn't know you. But you know, a friend I was speaking to, you know, a designer friend I was speaking to at the pub many years, like 3-4 years beforehand, you know, who happened to tell me that he used to do like pub signs, and another graffiti artist, you know, people who, you know, not quite a side hustle, but are passionate about food. All of those people we were able to just contact. You know, my mate who did pub signs, he came and painted the sign on our shop like sign on the black panel. We everything was incredibly lean. The graffiti artist, we, you know, literally a week beforehand, we'd gone for a tour at a restaurant in Soho that has graffiti, and went to the pub afterwards with some friends, and met one of the artists that had actually worked on the graffiti in that particular restaurant. And you know, it was all it you know, it's all about, it has been, everything that's led up to it has been about, you know, making friends, talking to people, listening to people, understanding that, you know, someone might just be a regular kind of person with a regular job, but there's always so much more to each individual. It all kind of came together, didn't it, when we opened up? It was incredibly lean, it was incredibly agile. We had our first customer come in, we were shocked, like our faces were like, do you want to order food from us? Resh was confident. She was like, right, okay. And we didn't have a till system, so I downloaded a cloud app, we set it up. That lasted the first, you know, 2 to 3 months before we started really thinking about, you know, how can we make this slightly more scalable. So yeah, absolutely everything was agile, probably too agile. But it worked, and things that came naturally to us were things like the brand. That's never changed from a kind of visual perspective, but from a feeling, we've become a lot more raw, and that might have been because of COVID, you know, but it's been a natural kind of progress, and we wouldn't have it any other way, I think.
Let's talk about COVID, because I think for hospitality it was obviously like such a catalyst for massive change. How did you guys adapt to that? Because I think initially you said it was all right and takeaways good, and yeah, tell us about it.
When COVID, when there was that announcement, sort of, I think there was like, you got to start staying at home kind of thing. We went into the restaurant. I drove in that night, and it was crazy busy, like no other Friday night, you know, we'd ever had. And I couldn't, and it was like, does everyone know something that we don't? It just felt like everybody had been sent a message to like, go and eat out because you're not going to get a chance again. And then obviously as time went on, we realized what was going on. And for the first, when we were asked to close, everyone was asked to close, so we closed the restaurant. And Heena was heavily pregnant with our second child at the time. You're about to go on maternity, I think. And then you start thinking, fuck, like, we can't just close here, because we can't, that wasn't in the plan, right? So with the team, you know, we had a couple of chefs, a couple of front of houses, and then a few other people that we use flex. And you know, it was them actually that said to me, Resh, we can't close, you know, there is no way we're not coming into work. And that was the thing I think I wouldn't have ever said to them, but they said it to me. And you know, I didn't need to be there, you know, it was just a case of, you know, opening the front door, just running it as a takeaway business. You know, people could order through third-party vendors, which we won't mention, but you know, and we thankfully then also were connected with an organization called the Meals for the NHS.
Okay, cool.
So they would order hundreds of like pots of food, and it might be like rice, a dal, and some curry. Those would be pre-made in the daytime, and they would be sent out to the local hospitals near us in Acton and Ealing. So what we then started doing was, well, the team have to go in anyway to make the food for the hospitals. So then those 2 or 3 evenings that we were doing that prep, then we'd open in the evening. So each week we varied the days we'd open. But it just meant, you know, people could come in you weren't really allowed to go out, but if you're going out to get a takeaway, then you could go out. So, and it meant it was people's outlet, so that, you know, you get that. So you'd get, I'm not being sexist or anything in any way, but like, you know, you'd often get the husbands or the boyfriends or the men coming in, because they just want to get out of the house for like 5 minutes, you know, have a little chin wag, and then they go back to their family with some nice food. So and it was really nice, you know, we just felt like we were like that outlet for a lot of people. You know, they could come in, you know, have a little chin wag, and, you know, meet other people as well, like while they're waiting for their food or whatever. And that carried on, right? It carried on and off for a year and a half, was it? I don't know, I can't remember anymore, but it was like open, close, open, close, open, close for a really long time. And we'd had our daughter, you know, in May. So for me, shielding was like quite, you know, we weren't allowed to like go anywhere before the birth, and so I was like quite detached from it for quite a while. And, you know, thankfully, you know, the team kept the place going. And, you know, COVID for us wasn't bad, if I'm honest. If anything, we got a lot more publicity and support, and all of the good things actually came out of that for us.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mm.
I mean, it's done so much damage, hasn't it, to many businesses in the aftermath. I'm going to take a little detour, and because you keep talking about food and it's making me so hungry. I've yet to try some Chapati Club dishes, but tell us about the menu at the moment, your favourite recipes, dishes, and that, yeah, share it with us, make us more hungry.
Seeing as it's lunchtime.
My favorite dishes, I mean, there were so many. The prawns, the prawn curry is a classic. So delicious, honestly.
Sorry to any vegans out there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, vegetarian wise, the black dal, and what about you?
Spinach. We did this really nice wholesome spinach, and it's not just spinach, but it's like all the greens you could ever think of.
So nice.
Yeah, it's a really, it makes you feel good.
Amazing. So tell us about Chapati Club now. It's a supper club now.
Yeah, so we're trying to host pop-ups and supper clubs. We've done a few vegan nights quite locally. We did a collaboration in June. We did a couple of collaborations then, back you know, back in the hood, back to where near Acton. So we've got all our regulars, sort of, they know that we're going to be there. And then we've got another one coming up on the 20th of September with a microbrewery in Hanwell, which is West London. So and then with, you know, we've got a couple of conversations going on more locally in Windsor as well. So yeah, there's a few things happening in the pipeline, which is great. And, you know, it means that we can sort of keep that keep it going in some shape or form.
Amazing, so good. I need to try one sometime. Every time you release a date, I'm like, I'm just going to turn up. Let's go back to some of the challenges that you had as business owners, because you were telling me some stories a couple of weeks ago about having an Indian chef, and there were maybe some cultural challenges that you faced as female business owners. Yeah, share some of these stories with us.
We did. We talk about, so we were quite, so when we opened, we're obviously known as a inclusive restaurant, shall we say, openly queer owned, and originally we weren't so much. We opened, we were obviously all about the food, and we've been through a bit of a journey with that, where, you know, we've had to truly be ourselves to kind of move forward. But yeah, Resh can tell you. Do you want to go into
the pride
thing? Yeah, no, so that's what had happened. So I was at work on Great Portland Street. It was around Pride time, so there were a lot of flags around, and I happened to pick a flag up, and then on the way home I went to the restaurant, which was often happening, in those days, in the early days. I just kind of picked up the flag, put it in a vase, and didn't even think about it, right? And then just carried on. And I remember Resh confronted me. She was like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you putting the flag there?" And I hadn't thought about it deeply. It was just like sometimes, you know, you come out, yourself comes out no matter where you take yourself. And we're like, actually, no, let's just leave it there. And it was the best thing we could have done.
I think that, you know, the point of my resistance was we weren't open. I don't know what I don't know what the chefs thought, because like they're, you know, Indian men, you know, probably like not far from my father's age, kind of, some of them, and we hadn't talked about us, you know. Heena was early stages pregnant with our son at the time, which again was like, you know, not really being talked about. And yeah, actually we're like, yeah, why aren't we, you know, this is something that we've created, you know, it's fine being, you know, not out at work, or, you know, especially you know, my whole life I worked in finance and private equity. It wasn't really like the thing to be out, you know. So at work I had this thing where I never talked about, you know, my private life or anything. And I think that just sort of embedded in me. So when we created this amazing restaurant, I still had that mindset, and I thought, oh, actually, okay, this has got to stop. I've got to now be real. And, you know, especially with bringing a kid into the world, you know, like, what we're going to do, hide him, you know? So yeah, with the chefs it was very difficult initially, and then I think we just decided at one point, look, you know, we are who we are, and they're gonna have to accept it, you know. And it was okay, you know, it was okay. It wasn't the best, but and dealing with Indian men that are much older than you, being told what to do by two Indian gay women, yeah, lead balloon, you know. So
you had to navigate quite, you know, differently around it. I can understand there's you know, I can understand, you know, why people want like female only, you know, kitchens and things like that, as a lot of female leaders and that sort of thing. But Resh was incredible, actually. She was really, you know, really quite quickly able to, you know, kind of gain their respect. You know, and a lot of that is to do with I think the way in which you can, you know, just speak so many languages and talk about food in quite a traditional way that people don't necessarily talk of when we're talking about different regions. And so when we're putting the menu together, I remember how quickly it happened, because you know, we knew exactly, and especially Resh, in terms of the communication part, was just able to kind of say, oh no, it's missing this, it's missing that, it tastes delicious, but it's not North Indian, or is this, you know, and that whole part of it, just really bring what we wanted into the menu. And so we did. It was very, very difficult, a lot of because of the respect basically that you get from male staff, the lack of male staff in the kitchen. And to be honest, we weren't counting on getting that respect straight away, not having ever run a restaurant before. So that challenge would have been there, but I think it was amplified, don't you? Just because of the you know, the sexism, the biases. But yeah,
yourselves, but sharing that with people sort of embedded you guys into the community of Acton a bit more then, didn't it?
It did. And it really opened up, you know, I grew up in Southampton, a very, you know, my parents weren't traditional, or aren't sorry, they're still around, but then, you know, they're not traditional. They are, but then, you know, they're quite easygoing. But, you know, I had nowhere I could go growing up in Southampton without thinking I'm going to get caught, you know, in terms of like being trying to be a bit gay for the day or whatever. There wasn't an option to do that. So I'd escape, you know, I'd come to London or go to Brighton, or and that was my only outlet. Whereas this, you know, you could walk out of your door in Acton on your own with a bunch of people, whatever you want. And, you know, I remember this guy, I'm still really good friends with him, and he was from America, moved to London, gay guy, Indian, and he came through the door, and then he sort of there was two doors. There was a front door, then another sort of door, and he was stood in that little footwell bit, and I was like, so I went to him. He seemed like he wasn't wanting to come in, so I went to him and I was like, "You okay?" And he was like, yeah, I'm fine." I was like, he goes, "Is this a gay restaurant?" I was like, "Well, it's not a gay restaurant, but we're gay owned." I said, "I'm Resh," and he was like, "Okay." He goes, "But can I come here on my own?" And I was like, and I just made him come in, sit by the front, so I could talk to him, and that was it. Like, never. And now we're like, yeah, we just keep in touch and we're friends, and and he was just, it reminded me of how I probably would have been, years ago in Southampton, like a bit scared to go somewhere, not knowing how I'd be treated or talked to, and it was just giving that safe space to people in the community to be, somewhere for them to go and hang out, or if you're gay and you want to take your parents somewhere where it feels good. And we had that a lot, didn't we? You had a lot of the community, ethnics or people of colour that would actually bring their parents to Chapati Club so they could eat the food they're used to in an environment that was familiar to them as people, like. So yeah, I think and it was really that I wish I could have taken my parents to somewhere like that, because they could have been happy with the food, or I could be all gay, in a restaurant. So
there were so many stories. There were parents coming in, where their children were, they thought their children were like quite young children were gay, and just coming in for dinner, talking to us, and just people coming in on their own, and seeing kids like grow up from being like 10 years old to doing their A levels and that sort of thing. It was a great experience.
Especially this week, like all the parents like on social media announcing their kids' results. I was like, oh my god, that kid was like 10, and now they've just done their A level. It's crazy.
Oh, it sounds so lovely. It sounds like such a great place that you created. What would you, as a queer-owned business, do you have any advice for other queer-owned businesses, or maybe people that own businesses that are queer but don't kind of shout about that? What advice would you give them?
I mean, if you're talking just hospitality, I think this is another thing Heena and I were talking about the other day, that hospitality is the one industry I think we've both been connected to through Chapati Club, where, and Glenda, this, like, you've been one of those people for me, like, you can just go out and have a chat, have a bitch or a moan, and it's okay. Like, it's the one industry that genuinely people will help each other if they can, and whether you're gay or not, I think that stands right for hospitality. And I think from the other side, I think people, especially after COVID, maybe I'm feeling it a bit more, but people actually, you could reach out to anyone, through social media, or drop them an email if you have their address, and they will reply, always. And we found that, and I'm sure that stands for anyone else as well, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's just a case of staying connected with people.
I think the one thing we've learned is, kind of don't be afraid to just be yourself. It's enough. You don't have to you don't have to have like a different front or a different personality, and that will get you further, because you're not thinking, it doesn't tire you out not being who you are, so you get more stuff done. Quite genuinely, you just get more done if you just don't have to think about it, and you can kind of crack on. You don't have to go around coming out all the time, but just just have the mindset of not having to hide it, and that should be enough. And it just gives you more energy as a person to do more stuff, and just gets you further, and you feel more of a connection with people. There's like fewer barriers in between connecting with someone.
know, what you were saying earlier about chatting to people in the pub and then they've become part of the business somehow. And I think it is just, whether it's hospitality or not, actually, if you're willing to kind of open yourself up to new connections and talk to people, find out what they're about and what they're into, it does just help grow your community, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. You've done a little bit of work with diversity, for diversity and inclusion. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know you were on a panel recently, Resh.
Yeah. So there's an organisation called Be Inclusive. Definitely check them out. Amazing woman called Lorraine. Found this, I think, possibly in COVID or just before. And she just brings together the best people, you know, in the community that have stories to share. I think I've been on a couple of panels with her now where we're just talking about adapting to change in hospitality, going back to a lot about how people are treated and not people are treated, but how. Okay, so when I had my finance career, you know, I knew that if I did this, I'll be at this level at this point. And I think with hospitality, that's one big chunk that is missing. Like, I think if you start working in a restaurant or a pub and you just go in and you're working behind the bar, you don't know where that career could take you. And this is a lot of the work that, you know, it's just not to do with diversity, but it is in the sense that, you know, it'd be good if these sort of careers sort of mapped out from a lower level. So, you know that in 3 years' time, you know, I could be the general manager, or, you know, I think that sort of stuff is what's really missing. And I think, you know, the organisation, like with Being Inclusive, like they provide training and coaching and mentoring, and talking to the right people. And, you know, it's going back to having those conversations, you know. I do a bit of mentoring with another organisation called Mission Kitchen. It's kind of like the WeWork of food and hospitality and drink. So you sort of rent a space, develop your products, and then go home for the evening. So I've been helping out this lovely lady called Frankie, and she's got a brownie concept, and it's just rolled out in a lot of Honest Burgers, you know. So she's got these little brownie pots, and it's just like, and for her, you know, she's quite young and running a business, she's on her own, and it's just, I'm not helping her do anything, but just having that person to sort of bounce ideas off, or okay, how do I structure my P&L, or, you know, anything, right? Anything that, you know, we've been through. And we didn't have, when we opened the restaurant, there was nobody that I personally knew. There was a few people that told me not to do it. I should have listened to them. But there was definitely no one that I could lean into that would help me with who to get my veg off, or, you know, who to order bin bags from. I had to really work it all out myself. And I think it was at a point where people were so tunnel vision about what they were doing for their business, there wasn't the scope or breadth there for them to, you know, make time. With now, I think after COVID, the whole D&I thing, people just are willing to just help out, you know, and open up their black book for you. Whereas I think 5-10 years ago, it just wasn't in their mindset, you know. I think the world is in that way very different and way more positive.
Yeah, I think COVID's given everyone a little bit of a wake-up call, hasn't it? Of, like, we spent so much time away from people, locked in our houses, and
yeah,
we lost family members and they lost friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's given everyone an eye-opener about what's important, I guess, and whether they're readjusting their careers or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's lovely. That. Tell us about being parents. So exhausting.
I'll hand this one over to Heena because I'm exhausted from being a parent this week. Don't want to talk about it.
And do you manage the struggle of you know, being parents and running a business? It must be tough.
At the start, it was So what had happened was, you know, we opened the restaurant in April, obviously having given up on our IVF journey, and for then we paused it, but there was we did like a bulk transfer booking, and there was one booked for 10 days after we opened the restaurant, and we were going to cancel it because we were so stressed. So forget even having children. Before you even have children is quite stressful, as you know. And so so we were going to cancel it, but there was no window to then rebook it, and then and so we went for it, and that was actually that was successful. And so we entered parenting straight away, 10 days in, as soon as we opened. And there was some ambitious, lovely ideas that we had for the restaurant, which as soon as I was pregnant, a few weeks in, I was like shutting it down, like incense. Oh, couldn't stand
I couldn't stand garlic.
I
It was like the
stand
core
garlic.
ingredient for Indian food.
So I was doing tasting and trying to think outside of where the mindset I was in at the time, or the physical situation I was in at the time. But yeah, parenting has been again, you know, we've just literally just cracked on. It's super hard. The good thing about hospitality, or our particular restaurant business, was that it was in the evenings, right? So you know, Resh would be available during the day, and you know, I'd work during the day as well. So as soon as I signed up, she'd go to a restaurant. So it was okay. And you know, we managed it. But yeah, it's been constant. It's been round the clock. You know, one clock's off and the other one goes to work. So it's been hard. We've managed it. We used to look forward to Mondays and Tuesdays more than anything, because that's when the restaurant was closed. And despite working during the day, the evening felt like a bit of a weekend evening. We'd go out for dinner, and we made it work. You just have to make it work, because you need to remember why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. And for us, a restaurant it's not just been a business and a way of making money, because don't do restaurants if you make money, but it's been such an identity, a cultural identity, from a two mums perspective identity, and it's been enhanced having children, and it drives you even more to make something work, and you know, just to be yourselves and to set an example for your kids. But in terms of actual parenting, it has been, we've made it this far. Let's say.
So far, so good.
Did you want to talk about, sorry?
Back in the summer holidays as well, so
It was like 5 or 6 actual days to go.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I'm taking next week off. It's not that bad.
Sorry to anyone there thinking about having kids, but great. They're great. They are great.
There's and you know, the other we talked about it last time. There's been a lot we've navigated around when it comes to parenting, and as two mums, you know, you think you're past it when it comes to just the actual inception, and you know, having a baby, but then you have these, you know, very different experiences, and the most different experience we've come across most recently is, you know, obviously schooling, and you know, how to navigate around that, and how to navigate around the conversation of, you know, having two moms, and you know, that sort of thing. And because I feel like this is the age, so around like 5, 6 years old, is where it really starts, you know, children start to become really mean, and you know, navigating around that has been a real experience, you know, because everyone's different. You know, this is the bit where we say, you know, it's not just about being two moms, it's not just about, because everyone's different. And so it's kind of you know, we've been through scenarios where, you know, we've had to kind of say our kind of stance on things, or you know, just our experiences, and just, you know, hoping that as we navigate around this and share our experiences, for example, with other parents, like at our kids' schools, that, you know, we'll all do it together, because there's other parents with other experiences as well. So yeah, there's been some scenarios, nail polish at school, you know, after Pride, that was one, wasn't it? And just kind of talking about those sorts of things has really helped. And
because as a mum myself, like even TV shows, kids TV shows on CBBS tend to follow those kind of genders of mum and dad, and it's mummy does daddy does that, and then it's different for Freddie, my son, because he's got mummy and daddy, and we follow those kind of pretty traditional roles, I suppose. But it must be hard even to find like cartoons for them to watch, or something that kind of resonates with them about what their home life is.
It is hard, and you know, you can't not let them watch these things. Their friends are watching stuff or talk about it, and I think our way around it, which we really do try and focus on, is like, we've got friends that are two mums, like we've got, you know, quite a few little pockets of friends that also have kids and stuff, so we try and just, you know, spend time with them, so the kids, and you know, for our kids, they don't know that it's not, I'm not saying it's not normal, but like that it's the minority to have two mums or two dads. You know, you'll probably more often see a single mum, or, you know, a single dad or whatever over that. But luckily, you know, here in West London as well, there's a lot of things we can now go to where the kids can experience, you know, the way we live with other, and you know, they don't know it's any different. It's just us and our mindsets, right? So it's probably us needing to get rid of that sort of bias from ourselves. But I don't think they feel it. You know, they do, you know, they talk about, you know, mums and dads and all the rest of it, but that's, you know, that's just like Heena was saying, I think it's just other kids, right?
They play mummies and daddies and all that sort of stuff, you know,
as opposed to mummies and mummies, yeah.
They don't play mummies and mummies, though. But yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey, and it's a constant one, and it's, you know, you just kind of like nudge away.
Definitely. So give us your top piece of advice for other parents wanting to maybe start a business. Maybe they've got a great idea, maybe they've got a pie in the sky idea like you guys did. What would you say about just going for it?
I think, you know, honestly, it takes a village. Like, you know, we were thankful and grateful that Heena's parents don't live very far from us. We're able to lean into them, you know, if not for me, but you know, Heena could like get support from her mum in the times where, you know, it's busy for me, especially when, you know, the kids were quite small. And I think if you've got that support kind of network, whether it's your partner or family or friends, you know, then just go for it. You know, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? You know, kids are still going to be there. I think that's, you know, a big deal. And Glenda, you know, you probably feel that as well. You know, you've got your husband there, and you've got, I think, your sisters nearby and stuff like that. So, you know, it helps, I think, from that perspective.
And you don't. Okay. I was just going to say, like, you don't have to quit your job to start your business. You know, you don't have to, you know, like, you could just start small, but just start.
Yeah, exactly. Just start researching it, start doing something about it, definitely.
Yeah.
So what does the future look like? Party Club, what's next? We've got some pop-ups and stuff happening.
Yeah, we've got pop-ups, and one thing I keep meaning to do is you know, we want to develop some sort of product as well. So there's that conversation. And we're just doing, I think the collaboration piece is where things can, really generate. So, we did a piece last week, which hopefully you'll see soon. But yeah, just keeping it going, having those conversations. I think having our own bricks and mortar at the moment, probably on the back burner. But yeah, I think, popping up in other people's spaces. And I think that's the one thing where you can help other businesses, where if they're not using their space in the day, can you be there during the day? Or if they're not using their space in the evening, can you be there in the evening? And it's just sharing that load now, rather than us all having places that are open day but night and night but day, So that's our sort of rhythm at the moment.
Exciting. I can't wait to see what you guys do in the future.
Bristol. We're coming to Bristol.
Come to and do in Bristol. Yeah, it'd go down so well. I'm just going to open up to the Q&A and see if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask. I have one here. What do you have any sources of inspiration that you'd recommend to the group? So podcasts, books.
But it depends on what I do in terms of opening up a business. I remember I still loved when we were going through, I got Radical Candor. Remember? I'm talking to people like chefs, which was great in terms of podcasts. Like there's so many food people. There's so many food people we follow. It's like just so many to mention. Do you want to mention? Who do we love like the stuff like Melissa Thompson's done?
Yeah,
we've just been following her from the start, and we just find her so inspiring, so amazing. And the way she's just so direct in the way she talks about stuff. And what else?
Yeah, I mean, it's having the time to listen to podcasts, right? But yeah, there's I know everyone talks about Stephen Bartlett, and he is like the podcast man at the moment, but there's people that he has conversations with that are the bit more interesting ones. And one of the recent ones was that I think his name's Jim Quick, and it's like how to learn how to just think quicker or memorize things better. And it's just that. And I think when you're a parent as well, everything has to be done quicker and faster and more efficiently. There's no time for dilly-dallying. So often it's a case of just reading the chunk of book that you need to read rather than the whole book, or listening to the podcast, just the bit that you need to listen to. But I know a big favorite of ours was actually a show that I think, did you watch it in the end?
I watched it.
The Bear.
It's so good.
And honestly, if you can watch The Bear, if you got time to watch The Bear, the pain points that they go through literally was our life. Obviously they made a movie out of it. We didn't.
We didn't.
But honestly, that movie, series, so it's on Disney Plus, I think. Really, really, I think I cried so much watching that, because it just brought everything back. Every emotion that we had was in that movie.
I cried so much as well. I absolutely loved it. And the first couple of episodes, I was like, oh my God, I feel so stressed out watching it.
But that was our life, like the bit, I don't know how many people have watched this, but there's that bit where in the second series where the door handle breaks through the cold room. That happened to us. And it's like no one was locked in there, thankfully, but and I was like, I can't believe their cold room door handles just broke, because that's what happens when you've got a restaurant.
Don't give the plot away.
I'm not. But watch The Bear. The Bear for me most recently was the best thing. Really inspirational as well. Really inspirational, because they took it further.
I just loved all the movements in it of them like sending the team off to go and do different bits.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Story for me, I was just like, it's just so nice. So yeah,
Really.
I have another question here from Kathleen, who says, thanks for sharing your inspiring story. Wanted to ask how you find working / running a business with your partner. Does it ever become a challenge?
Well, we're still together, if that helps.
So we yeah, like I said, there's no room for politeness really. We'll just go straight in there. So yeah, obviously, yeah, I come from like the brand side and the design side, and Resh comes from the food side and the business and everything really. So there's a lot of yeah, especially at the beginning, there was a lot of back and forth around decisions made based on finance against kind of like, no, this is really going to affect the brands, but we it's fine. It's I think I don't think I could ever really work with someone else in the way that Resh and I have worked. It's almost, I just know what she wants. And I think Resh knows what I need. There's times when we clash because there's so much other stuff going on. But it's
yeah, it's been okay. I mean, it's just, I'm very, like we need, say we have a menu change, it'd be silly things like that. I wouldn't communicate it with Heena until like the 11th hour, and
it's the 11th hour.
I need these menus in like 10 minutes, so, but that it's just the way, when you're running a restaurant that's so agile, and the menu changing or the wine list changing, it was just constant. And but I didn't know you, Glenda, then, so I know you, Glenda, now. So
but yeah, so there's been I think it works really well, because we can be talking about like kids' holidays or dividing chores and that sort of thing, and next thing we'll be talking about ideas. So it's really exciting, and it's really fun and inspiring, and to work with someone that you live with, and someone that you have to negotiate other things with. There are times when there's clashes, when we're dividing tasks and that sort of thing, but I think you're going to have that anyway. And
I think it comes down to roles as well. Like, I think being parents as well, you kind of have your roles, and at home you look after homes, you kind of have your roles in the house, and same with the business, right? Like, you kind of work out what you're both good at, bad at, and then just lean into each other in that way.
Well, I think you're doing wonderfully. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today and donating your time. Everyone that's come on has done it completely for free. And yeah, just spent some time talking with us, and it's been so nice getting to know you both over the last however many months. And thank you for sharing this with everyone. I wish you loads and loads of luck. And that kind of concludes our mini female founders series. So it's the last one today. So thank you so much for joining. Who knows what will happen with this in the future? But it's been loads of fun, and I think we've ended on a real high with Resh today. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Resh and Heena.
Thanks for having us, Glenda.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.